Happy New Year! Sorry, I've gone quiet in the last couple of months because a lot is happening in my personal life. And I was also back in Singapore, Malaysia, and a little bit of Bali for 3 weeks in December to escape the cold, miserable winter here in London. But now that I'm back in London, I'm ready for 2026. And what a better way to start the year by talking about how you can start building wealth for yourself and also your friends in 2026. It being the festive season, I ended up spending a lot of time catching up with friends. And amongst my self-made rich friends, I can't help but notice they seem to share some common characteristic. And I'm going to share those characteristics with you. For my UK audience, I'm also going to add in 3 things that you can do in 2026 to start building wealth for yourself. So let's start. Characteristic number 1, they save a minimum of 10% of their take-home pay. I'm talking about friends who are working in the corporate world, they don't run their own business, so their salary and cash flow input is quite predictable. Very often, these are the friends, when they first started working, they will save about 10% of their take-home pay because, when you first started working in your career, you don't earn that much anyway. You're still building your wealth, you're still building your career. They start off with 10%, but as their salary grows, that percentage gets bigger and bigger. Very often, they keep their expenses the same as the students' sort of expenses, or they let it grow very slowly. That way, they avoid the lifestyle creep. And these are also the friends that sometimes they end up saving 40 to 50% of their take-home pay. You might think that this is impossible, but once you start building that habit, it's actually quite easy to save that amount of money, especially if you're earning a lot of money. And also, these are the friends where when they get bonus, a large percentage, if not 100% of their take-home bonus goes to savings and investment account. That's how they start building wealth since they receive their first salary. Characteristic number 2, they keep track of their expenses. Depending on how detailed you are, you might just want to review your credit card bills at the end of the month, or you might want to keep track of every pence. It really depends on your personality. Find a way that suits you. For me personally, I keep track of every single pence that I spend using an app called Spendings. Not sponsored by Spendings. I personally use it because it allows me to customize a different category of expenses and income on that app. I do have to manually key in all my expenses, but I find that very therapeutic. There are free apps out there, so you don't have to pay anything for this app. And there are also banks that have apps that can help you keep track of your expenses. And I think Monzo has one, again, not sponsored by Monzo. I'm not a user of Monzo. I personally don't like the apps that banks have because I have multiple bank accounts, and I would recommend people to have a minimum of 2 bank accounts, and I'll explain it in one of my shorts in the future. So, if you're using the expense tracking app from a bank, then chances are you kind of lock into that bank, which I don't quite like. So that's characteristic number 2, keep track of your expenses. Characteristic number 3 is invest as early as possible. These are the friends who very often start investing in their 20s. I've heard of one case where she started investing when she was 16. Basically, that's the minimum legal age where you can start investing and open a trading account. So these are the friends who really started investing very early. They might not have an amazing investment track record. And very often when you first started investing, you're still trying to figure out the investment market. You're still trying to figure out your own mentality and your own psychology. And you're bound to have periods of time where you lose money. But when you start investing in your 20s, you also have a lot of time to correct those mistakes that you have. And in investing, sometimes I say time is more important than money. The longer the runway you have, the better it is for you. Even if you can only save quite minimum amount of money every single month, let's say just a few £100. In one of my future videos, I'm going to show you how, even if you only start investing in your 40s, it's still very possible for you to retire as a millionaire in UK. So watch out. And also, if you haven't clicked a like and a subscribe, please do that so that you don't miss out on any future videos that I have. So yes, start investing. I cannot advocate enough about the benefit of investing. For my UK audience, there are 3 additional things that you can do to get rich in 2026. First, really make use of your stocks and shares ISA. If you have not heard of stocks and shares ISA, basically it's a type of investment account that you can open with the likes of IG, Interactive Brokers, Trading 212, II. I have used so many investment platforms all over the world, and my personal favorite is IG. It might not be your personal favorite because it can seem very complicated, but once you get used to the interface, the amount of information that you can get on an IG platform is just unbelievable. So how does it work? Normally, if you use a normal investment platform, any money that you make, be it capital gain or dividend, is subjected to tax. So the capital gain tax is a minimum of 18%, and dividends, again, you need to pay tax on it. But if you buy and sell shares using a stocks and shares ISA, so within the stocks and shares ISA investment account, you don't have to pay any capital gain tax or tax on your dividend. That will really, really speed up how you can compound your money, because effectively you are increasing your efficiency by 18%. So every year you are allowed a £20,000 allowance into all your ISA accounts. And there are many different types of ISAs, really just to make things complicated. So there are the stocks and shares ISAs, there's cash ISAs, there is LISA, lifetime ISA, and there is also an innovative finance ISA. Some of this ISA comes with their own sub-limit. You can see that here. And the £20,000 per year limit applies to all of them. With stocks and shares ISA, there is a maximum of £20,000 limit. So you could always just don't pump in money in the rest of the ISAs and really just pump in money in that stocks and shares ISA. So if you have not used up your ISA limit on all the rest of the ISA account, you can pump in £20,000 into the stocks and shares ISA. And also, just so you know, the allowance starts on the 6th of April every year and ends on the 5th of April every year. So if you're being really cheeky, you can always pump in £20,000 on the 5th of April 2026, and then pump in another £20,000 on the 6th of April 2026. So that means immediately, if you have a cash pile of £40,000 lying around, you can immediately pump in that. Well, I mean, of course, you can pump it in now, right? Why wait till last minute? You can pump that in now and start compounding your wealth within this ISA wrapper. So really highly recommend you to do that, just so that you can be more efficient in your investment. If you would like to open an ISA account with IG, I do have an IG referral link in the description of this video. I would get £100 referral fees in case you do sign up with IG. Other than that, I'm not being paid by IG in any other way. And also, I have some people who go, well, but Vivian, I don't know how to invest. Like how does it work when I pump in money into a IG ISA account? Well, you look at it like a bank account, right? I mean, it's technically different from a bank account, but you could just put in that £20,000 into an ISA account and let it sit there as money. So you don't even have to buy and sell shares with that £20,000. You can put in money first, just so that you take advantage of the timing that's coming up in April. And then you start learning how to invest in the meantime. I would say if you don't know anything about investment, the first step really is just opening up an ISA account first, and then you start buying shares in a really small quantity, even just £50, right? Money that in case you press the wrong button and bought the wrong shares, you wouldn't panic and you can still sleep. That's kind of how you start investing. Really just start from very small amount. If you have a bit more money, you just pump in a few £100 and learn from there. But subscribe to this video. I'm going to teach you more ways of how to learn how to invest for yourself. So ISA, first thing, stocks and shares ISA specifically. So second thing my UK audience could do is workplace pension. People don't talk about it. And I would ask you to do this immediately after you finish watching this video. In fact, if you have to pause this video and go check on your workplace pension, go do it. I would be very, very happy for you. All UK companies are legally required to auto-enroll their employees into a workplace pension if their employees are between the age of 22 and the state pension age, which is either 66 or 67. And also they earn more than £10,000 from the company every single year. So they're legally required to do that. How it works, the typical scenario is you're auto-enrolled into the company pension. You contribute 5% of your gross salary into this workplace pension, and then your company will contribute 3% of your gross salary on top of the gross salary that they are paying you into this workplace pension. So effectively, you're getting a 3% pay rise without even talking to your boss. Some companies would even match their pension at a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning if I contribute 5% of my gross salary into this workplace pension, my company will contribute 10% into this workplace pension. So you're getting a 10% pay rise just by talking to your HR department, the HR personnel who's responsible for employees' benefits and all that. 10% pay rise just by doing that. And the big advantage about workplace pension is when you contribute your gross salary, 5%, let's say, into this workplace pension, you're reducing your gross salary by 5%, and that reduces the income tax you have to pay. Come on, unless you're a billionaire and you would like to contribute more to the UK economy, we're all looking at ways to legally reduce our income tax expense. So this is one perfectly legal way to do that. Check out your company policy, and most importantly, check out what your workplace pension consists of. Very often, this sort of auto enrollment scheme means they are breaking down your pension contribution into a 60-40 portfolio, which in my opinion, when you're young, you're not taking on enough risk. You can just 100% put it into some sort of ETF. You might want to diversify in terms of what sort of geography and what sort of industries, but I'm going to cover that in my future video. So let's keep it simple for this particular one. Workplace pension. Really check out what's in your workplace pension and what is in your company's policy so that you can start maximizing your workplace pension contribution. Bear in mind, this is a pension, which means you can only start taking out the money when you hit 55. That means it gives you a very long runway to grow your wealth and let your money compound in a tax-free wrapper. So remember that. Last one is SIP. Okay, bear with me. SIP is a bit complicated. It stands for Self-Invested Personal Pension. As the name suggests, it's self-managed. And it's kind of like a cross between ISA and workplace pension. It's similar to ISA because it's self-managed. It's similar to workplace pension because it is a pension and you can only touch it when you're 55 and above. And you can open up a SIP account with the likes of IG, Interactive Brokers, Hargreaves Lansdown. And again, if you would like a link to IG, my referral link is below. So it is more active in that you're not auto-enrolled in it. You have to open up a SIP account yourself. The advantage of SIP is that you'll be investing using your pre-tax money. Okay, it is a bit complicated. It's like, how does it work? I have to open it and I have to put in money. So how is it pre-tax money? How is it pre-tax salary? And over here, I want to sort of digress a little bit in that your pre-tax money and your post-tax money is, there's a big difference in your pre-tax money and your post-tax money when it comes to investing, especially in a jurisdiction like the UK when the tax rate is really, really high. We are talking about people who are earning between 50K to 125K. You're 40% of your salary goes to tax. So how can I, effectively get a 40% bonus and then invest using that pre-tax money? So you want to do that as much as possible. And SIP is one instrument where you can do that. So let me explain how it works. In case you need to get a coffee, go get a coffee, go talk to a friend, and tell them you're watching this amazing videos on how to grow wealth in 2026. Okay, so let's start. Let me use an example because the calculation for SIP can be so complex that there's not even an online calculator that tells you, how much money are you getting from SIP. Let's say you are in the 40% tax bracket and you manage to save £6,000 every single year between the 6th of April to the 5th of April next year, every single year. And in this case, let's assume your emergency funds are being taken care of and you don't need this £6,000 until you are 55, retirement age. So what you could do, you could open a SIP account. You can use the link below, wink, wink, and deposit the £6,000 into a SIP account. Again, this kind of just works like ISA in that you can just put the money in and you don't need to buy any investment instrument. Just leave it as cash. just so that you can set the system up. Immediately, your SIP provider will add an additional 20% on top of the £6,000 that you have contributed. And this is the calculation. So you get back part of the tax that you have paid on this £6,000. Because think about it this way. For you to take home £6,000, right? This is your post-tax money. Your gross salary equivalent would be £10,000. So if I want to invest, of course, I'm going to invest using that £10,000 as much as possible because that's more money to invest. So when you open a SIP account, this £6,000 is being topped out to £7,500, right? The SIP provider gives you that £1,500. You still have an additional £2,500 that is not claimed. So what happens is at the end of the year, when you file a self-assessment, this is your tax return in the UK, the HMRC will reduce your tax expense by £2,500. This is how you effectively neutralize the effect of tax on your £6,000 of take-home pay. And SIP is an amazing instrument to do that. Of course, the catch is you can only access SIP or take the money out when you're 55, otherwise you face a huge penalty. And also when you do take out your money from SIP when you're 55 and above, income tax would apply at that point, whatever the prevailing income tax rate is at that point. So eventually you still have to pay tax, but let's say you're 40 years old and you're planning to take the money out when you're 55, it gives you a 15-year time period where you don't pay tax. Effectively, you are clawing back your tax to grow your investment. And this 15 years and that clawback of tax could massively boost your investment in this 15 years. So really, really make use of that. There is a cap. So between SIP and workplace pension, you're allowed to contribute a maximum of £60,000 every single year. But that's more than enough, right? I mean, most people don't even max out their SIP anyway, unless you get a huge bonus or you earn a lot of money. So really, really make use of that. So I covered the first advantage of SIP, meaning you're clawing back the tax. The second advantage of SIP, and it's not dissimilar to workplace pension, in that if you have worked for multiple employers before and you have multiple workplace pension, you can combine all of them and put them into one SIP account. It requires a bit of paperwork, but it just makes it so much easier for you to manage your investment. Of course, you could do that for workplace pension as well. You can port your pension from one employer to another. But if I were in your situation, let's say I have multiple workplace pension, instead of porting it to my current employer's workplace pension, I personally would rather port it to a SIP because of the third advantage. The third advantage is SIP is self-managed. Especially if you have ambition to manage your own investment. With SIP, you could invest in shares, individual shares, in ETFs, in funds, in bonds and gilts. Whereas with workplace pension, a lot of the time they will only allow you to invest in ETFs and funds. So there is a lot more limitation when it comes to workplace pension. So there you have it. 6 things you can do in 2026 to get rich. And I would love to share more about workplace pension and SIP in the near future, because I know these are 2 complicated topics that I don't think people talk about them enough. So if used correctly, these really are the 2 instruments that can massively increase the speed of your wealth building process. So if you find this video useful, please click a like, and most importantly, share this with friends and family whom you think would like to start building wealth in 2026. So, oh yeah, and of course subscribe, otherwise you're gonna miss out on my future videos. So see you next time. Bye.